Hey guys! Welcome back to the Penetrol Test Pour Series. In this fluid art series, I'm experimenting with various pouring medium recipes, ratios, and methods while using Penetrol as the cell additive. Today I have two more pours to share with you, a spinning funnel pour and a smaller flip cup with the leftovers. If you saw the last video, you may remember that I had decided to test out crackle paste mixed in our pouring medium. The results produced very heat-reactive cells that have more movement when a torch or heat gun is applied. Since we didn't add a very large amount of the crackle medium to it, I wasn't entirely sure if it actually made a difference or not. So this time, I'm using the same ratio for my pouring medium, just without the crackle medium added. Since I skipped my mixing session for this pour, let's review what I'm working with today. The pouring recipe that I'm using is a mix of Gluol, Floetrol, and Penetrol. I mixed together 1 ounce of Gluol, 2 ounces of Floetrol, and 5 drops of Penetrol for each color. I'm measuring these mediums out by weight on a scale, not in a measuring cup. I'm not going to take a deep dive into it, but measuring the mediums out differently can lead to different results. I haven't tested it to know the exact amounts, but there will be slight differences in measurement between weight on a scale and volume in a measuring cup. If you've been around for a while though, you'll already know I really don't measure things precisely very often. But when I do, I make sure to bust out the scale. Anyway, to get off the sidetrack, the base does not contain Penetrol and is a ratio of 2 ounces of Gluol and 3 ounces of Floetrol. Here's my color list if you're interested in what I have mixed up for this pour. The colors are very similar to the previous experiment with the crackle, but not quite the same. I do want to go ahead and point out something here. The type of acrylic paint you use in your pouring medium can affect the results you end up with. Not all acrylic paints are made the same. Each company has their own way of processing the pigment and their own blend of acrylic binders to hold it all together. Even when the paint has the exact same pigment code, if they're made by different brands, they're most likely going to be slightly off from one another. This is why I like to make sure that I add in the brand of paint that I'm using instead of just the color. I've used a wide variety of acrylic paints in my fluid art. Usually, when I'm picking out acrylics, I go by sight. Basically, I look for paints that I think are pretty. From there, I can look at the pigment code to see if the colors that I have chosen are single pigments or mixtures of pigments. Knowing which pigments make up your paint comes in handy when you're trying to create custom color mixes. Single and mixture pigment acrylics are just what they sound like. A single would be one processed pigment that's been mixed into an acrylic binder. A mixture is a combination of pigments blended in the binder. Knowing what pigments you're mixing together will help you have a better idea of what the results will be. Since the mixtures already have several pigments within the tube, it can be easier to create muddy colors when using them. Remember, acrylic pouring is a somewhat unpredictable art form. Paints seemingly have a mind of their own. We, as the artists, just try to guide them along. Even when following step-by-step tutorials, you may end up with something completely different looking than what the tutorial shows. Each and every acrylic pour is unique in some way. That is what I absolutely adore about this art form. Anyway, I'm back to using my new funnel set again for this pour. This funnel has a strainer insert that snaps into the bottom. I really liked the results it gave me the last time, so I wanted to test it out with a spin. While plugging the bottom of the funnel, I add in my colors layer by layer. Once I have the funnel completely filled, I release the paint right above the base and start slowly spinning the canvas. This gives us a similar look to the spinning ring pour from the previous video. While we have the same spiral shape as the last pour, the initial cell action blows the previous out of the water. It immediately produced a ton of cells. I think that most of these initial cells were from the way the other paints mix with the metallic. Extreme sheen paints have a tendency to cell up on their own without any additives mixed in. They really go wild when you add a cell activator, though. Once the paint is spread out across the canvas more, those smaller cells of metallic paint are flung out and get more of a cloud cell look to them. The purple mix still laces between, but the cells widen up and spread apart with the extra spins. If I would have used a slightly smaller canvas, I probably wouldn't have run into this effect quite as hard. I don't hate it by any means. In fact, I love the way it looks like clouds being sucked into a portal. As far as cell action though, I think the initial cells were just gorgeous. After finishing up with the funnel pour, I had a little bit of paint left over. Just enough to get a small 8x8 canvas covered. So, in an effort to keep it similar to the last pour, I went with another flip cup. Again, you can see the initial cells from the reaction to the metallic paint. Since I didn't have to spin the paint out quite so far, it was able to keep those smaller cells more intact. So, now that I've tested it both ways, do I think the crackle medium made a difference in the pouring medium recipe? Well, yeah, a little bit. The mixture with the crackle medium had more heat reactive cells. While it did present some initial cell action, they didn't really start popping up until the heat was applied. The glue and Floetrol mix on its own seemed to rely more on the paint to create the cells. Heat did cause a small reaction, but it was nowhere near what the crackle medium led to. So, while the crackle didn't create the only cells, it did result in more of them. At the end of the video, I went ahead and added in side-by-side photos of the pours from this video and the last. There you'll be able to get a better idea of what the differences actually looked like. Now, I said that I was going to finish this series up by doing some pours with just paint and water with the added Penetrol. Well, I did do those tests, but I don't think I'll be posting the videos. I went with the primary colors, but I accidentally chose an opaque blue while the others were transparent. This caused it to completely take over. I'll share the dry results, but surprisingly, there was very little cell action. There wasn't a ton of variation across the canvases either, even when upping the amount of Penetrol all the way up to 8 drops. Since those were such duds, I just threw together some other stuff to test out instead. So, next video, I'm going with an ultra thick mix of paints. I'll be mixing Floetrol and heavy gel medium to create our pouring medium recipe for an open cup pour. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. Alright guys, that's going to be it from me. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. I'll see you next time. Bye!